What's up YouTube? My name is Ruff and today I'm going to show you how I made my remix of Love You Like a Love Song by Selena Gomez, which sounds like this.
I love you like a love song, baby, and I keep hitting repeat, beat, 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 beat.
So now that we have Ableton open, we're going to try something different for this video, and I'm going to go over the drop first. And this remix has two separate project files. So this is the production one. Then there's also the mixdown project file where I actually switch the order of the leads. So in this project file, these leads come first. But in the actual final remix, these ones come first. And I did all of that in the mixdown project, so we'll get to that, but I want to go over the actual synths and everything in this file first, since everything's frozen to audio in the other one. So starting with the atmosphere in the drop, all I have is this vinyl crackle that's sidechained to the kick, and this New York Under the Bridge kind of like real world texture from Splice that sounds like this. And it gives a white noise characteristic, but it has that real world texture, which is nice to just add a little bit to the very top end of the drop. Then for the leads, you'll see I have four separate groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, because each lead's a little different. So in the actual final remix, this is the first lead, so we'll go over this one first. And it sounds like this. And processing wise, on the group, I just have some FabFilter Saturn on the clean tube setting with the mix at 100% and the drive at 72, so adding a decent amount of saturation. And then I just have some soft clipper boosting at 19 on the gain knob. Then diving into the actual synth patches. So this is the main one. If I open up Serum, all it is this saw wave boosted an octave, and then we have this LFO shape here, and this rate is what's being automated. So if I open up the automation, watch this and you'll see what rates I have it automating at. And all that was just drawing basically these horizontal lines and then just immediately cutting it vertically to switch right to the next LFO rate. I didn't want to do anything diagonal or sloping. I wanted it to be very abrupt, which is why it's these kind of horizontal and straight line automations. And then that second layer is more of a laser than like a machine gun. And that's the Satisfaction Laser Fill from the Cheyenne Giles pack. So these two together. And this has the same exact LFO and LFO rate. Then the second one that comes in is this sound here. So I have this cashmere brass stab. Processing wise, we have Saturn, decapitator, some EQ, some low cut, and some sidechain. And then on the group, I have this frequency shifter, which we'll get to. And that leads directly into this saw. And all that is this basic shapes kind of like descending line, and then I have this other basic shapes which is a half descending line with a square wave at the end. Then we have this envelope which is modulating the detune on both of the oscillators as well as the cutoff on the filter. So that's what gives it that wobbly feeling when you chop it up like this. And then when the second iteration of this saw comes in, it's just a straight line. But then that's when the frequency shifter comes in and just brings down the frequency at the very end here using the coarse knob. And then that's when the second layer comes in. And that's just a screechy sound from the Cheyenne Giles Sun Goes Down screech. So together. And then the final lead that comes in, which is really the third and the final, is this same laser sound with a different LFO rate. So all that is the same exact sound. So we have a 16th note on the LFO for the bulk of it. And then it switches to an 8th note for the very end. And then I have this high pass just taking out all the lows to kind of transition into the next section. as well as some Endless Smile, which is doing kind of like a washout with some reverb and delay. So that's all of the leads, but then we transition into the second section where the leads come out and this drop piano comes in, which is the same piano that's in the builds, just with more distortion. So the drop pianos all together sound like this. And on the group, we have a decent amount of stuff. So we have Saturn with the clean tube just to get a nice kind of cohesive sound across all the different elements with the same type of saturation. Then we have some OTT at only a 5% depth rate. We have some Decapitator with a drive at 2 in the mix at almost 100% wet. We have some Greg Wells piano on the clear piano setting just to brighten it in the mix. We have some sidechain. Then we have some Endless Smile just to transition at the end of the drop. We have some soft clipper just to bring up everything a little bit more, and then this EQ just to take out any lows added by the saturation or distortion, and then this EQ just to transition out alongside the Endless Smile. So that's for the second half of the drop, and then the basses also are different between the first and second half. So in the first half, we have 4 different basses that go along with each lead. The lead that's first, that machine gun one, corresponds with this bass. So a very simple pattern with 3 different layers. This first layer, and we're taking out a lot of the highs and just really leaving these low mids and these lows. It's a sine wave with a little bit of a punch kick attack to it. And then the second bass is this BA loop, which is just the basic shapes descending horizontal line with a sub you saw an oscillator too. So together these sound like this. And then we have a sub, which is really jacked up here. All this is just a basic saw wave with a little bit of detune, the BA Wow 2. And then we have some radiator. We have some EQ. We have some volume, just bringing it down 6 decibels. We have this pedal from Ableton with the sub turned on and the bass at 100%. And then we have some more EQ, just taking everything out under 30 hertz. And that sub adds a lot to the bouncy bass. And then in the second half, it just plays a similar but a little bit different pattern. And then the first one was. And then when those kind of side chain saw type leads play, we have these gritty basses. And you'll notice here I have this filter kind of taking out the highs and the lows simultaneously once that wobble comes in. And this first layer is from my homie Weil, and it's his mid-bass preset in Silent, taking out the lows up to 350 hertz and taking out the highs at around 6K. And then in the second half, that pitch bend's actually coming from within the Ableton MIDI control. So we're pitch bending it within the MIDI here, not using frequency shifter. And then the second bass is the Rio Sturdy Classic, which these wavetables should look pretty familiar by now. And then we have the same sub as the bouncy one. So all together. So now if we play everything in the drop. This is the mixdown project, so this is where things get a little different from the previous project, starting with what we just went over, the leads and the bass. So I switched the order because I felt like I wanted the drop to start with that machine gun lead and not that saw one. So it actually sounds like this in the final. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I have this kind of vocal little thing. Do this.
Beat, 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 beat.
So this I only have playing during the lasers. And I felt like it would be a little odd for this to come in here and not immediately follow up this. So that's why I decided to switch up the order within the mixdown. Processing within the mixdown on the leads and basses was just a lot of EQ and some more transitional stuff. Nothing too crazy. You'll see how fat that bass is. And on the leads, you'll see I added some soft clipping to the horn and nothing else really to the leads. So diving into the nitty gritty of the drums and the effects, we have this kick. Very punchy, very soft clipped. And that's because it's really got to punch through. And it's also got to stay consistent with both different lead and bass sounds. So that's the kick I felt achieved that the best, especially with the soft clipping on it. We have two clap layers. We have this clap and we have this clap together. Then we have this fill here that leads into the verse. We have these hats, so we have this filter hat, which has a low pass filter on it. And it's got a little bit of auto pan. Then we have this centered hat. This hat that's a little more to the left with some reverb. And this hat that's a little more to the right, which is very dry. So together, it's really pulling you to the left because of that reverb. We have some perk shots in here. And that really just was literally just dragging random perk shots and rim shots and bongo sounds and just kind of lining them up on the grid till it gave a little bit more of a groove. We have this ride that plays alongside the kick. And then all the drums together sound like this. And you'll notice on the first kick of every 2 bars, I cut out all the percussion, so it's just that kick to kind of give you that pullback and then bring you right back into it. We've got these crashes, this downlifter, and then I have some white noise with the same LFO as the lead. So whatever the lead's LFO is in each section, the noise follows it. And that was basically done by just taking LFO tool, matching the LFO shape to the one in Serum, and then automating the rate the same way that the Serum LFO rate was automated. And everything in the drop all together sounds like this. Cool, so that's everything in the drop of my remix of Love You Like a Love Song by Selena Gomez. Hope you enjoyed this video. That's all for now, so I'll catch you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Peace!